Welcome to our sixth Alliance Roundtable, where we're discussing how CEOs are using AI to drive results in our own businesses. We've been tracking a couple metrics over the past 3 months, and we've seen, number one, that the percent of CEOs who are using AI in their businesses has actually increased from 70% to 80% just in the last 3 months. And the percent of CEOs who are seeing positive results has grown from 50 to 57%. So we're all experimenting, we're making progress, and today we'll focus on AI agents that can help our sales team drive sales and results. Most of you have gotten to know our moderator, Matthew Swanson, managing partner of the Silicon Valley Software Group, and once again he'll briefly share a tip or two of what he's been learning over these each month. And he's invited David Zhang, CEO of Omni, as our guest CEO. And David will be sharing his experience using AI agents to augment sales teams. So before we get started, I'd like to mention there's a couple of upcoming AI events that we'd like to make you aware of that other people are putting on and that we thought might be worth your time. And so you can check them out in chat. One's more at the governance level of board levels of looking at use cases and risk analysis. And the other one's I think a conference that David's involved in on using AI for growth marketing. So with that, Matthew, it's all yours.
Okay, well, thank you, Paul, and welcome everyone to the latest installment in our AI series for CEOs. Last month, we broached the topic of AI agents, and we talked about how it's introducing a new form factor to large language models like ChatGPT that are allowing companies to take on more advanced use cases. And this month, we're fortunate enough to have a founder of an AI company sharing his journey on building these agents. But before we jump into our discussion, I wanted to extend off of our previous primer on AI agents and go one level deeper. So as a quick refresher, we talked about AI agents last time that, one of the defining properties is that they have these components to them that all use large language models to do advanced tasks. But the interesting thing is they're designed very similar to how people do their work, right? So agents have consistently these components like memory, where they can go and access data about your company, just like an employee would. They plan out tasks and they orchestrate what they should do on each task after the other. They perform actions either in the real world by talking to an employee or customer or to another agent. And then another interesting property is they use tools to get their jobs done. Again, very analogous to how people get work done. So we're going to double click on the tools section this time around. And I want to share a tool that I found helpful in our go-to-market motions at Silicon Valley Software Group, where one of our goals is to help get our message across to venture capital and private equity investors and their portfolio companies. We're fractional CTOs, and we're constantly trying to get in front of those groups. So we've built our own AI agent that is able to collect contacts at these various organizations.
Hi, Matthew, sorry to interrupt you. Can you go to a full screen presentation mode?
We're about to swap out the slide, but the next ones will be full screen. So,
perfect. Sure. Yeah, right. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So the use case that I'm going to show a tool in action and then how we apply that tool to launch LinkedIn ad campaigns. So the tool that I'm going to share here real quick is called Multion. So anyone can go and access this. It's a somewhat newer tool, but basically it's primarily used as an API that you would configure for your agents. But once you do that, you can start to talk to your agent and have it browse the internet to go retrieve information for you. So it's a pretty powerful tool. So to kind of illustrate why this is useful, if you ask ChatGPT to go and find information on the internet, we always get this response, right? It's not capable of doing that. So if I want to go, for example, and gather contacts, the portfolio companies at this particular venture firm, what Multion will show us in their playground here is what the agent is doing. So you can actually see it's clicking around the website in a very similar way that you or I might do that. And it's returning me the results that it's finding. And if you were to compare them, these are very accurate. So, I can go even deeper and I can ask to find specific people at one of these companies at this venture capital firm. And similarly, it's going to show us exactly step by step what it's doing. And the key is I'm not telling this. I haven't programmed Multion to go and take these steps. It's determined on its own the right way to navigate the website to find the information. Again, very similar to how an employee might do that. So that's novel in a certain way, but you and I could have done this just as easily. So the reason that this becomes powerful is when you start stitching requests together. And so I'm going to show just a very simple example of something we've done where we have these agents that we build. We have this interface that we can talk to the agent, and the agent has documents. This is a Notion. If you're not familiar, it's just a text editor. So we tell the agent, here's where you can go find facts. Here's your memory. We give it commands, and then it in the background selects the right tool to do the job. So if I wanted to, for example, gather accounts from the lead sources listed in this file and return it to this other file, I can execute this command, and it will take a minute, so I'm not going to do it right now, but it is going to return back a bunch of results, right? So it looked at this file, found each one of these companies, these firms, and then return a bunch of companies. And then similarly, if I were to ask it to go gather contacts from each one of those companies that were printed out into this file, it could do that and return me yet another file that's formatted in a way that I can feed this to another agent to go upload it to LinkedIn and start a targeted ad campaign. And if anyone's ever gone through that process of clicking around the LinkedIn ad campaign creation tool, you got to learn the specifics. So it's been super impressive to see how the agents are able to look at the tutorials on how to launch a LinkedIn campaign, do it on its own, and ultimately it gives us a much more targeted use of our ad spend. Ad spend is notoriously wasteful because you're targeting too wide of an audience. So this is just one way you can think about new use cases of using agents. In the past, we would have had a marketing contractor and some lead gathering Upwork contractors, and now we have an agent do it all by itself. So plenty more use cases I'm sure we can all think of, but we're going to now switch it over and hear from David Zhang, who is creating AI agents that support marketing and sales teams. And David, you've had an interesting background. You're a serial entrepreneur, a young one at that, and so you've had the experience of growing a company in the pre-AI world, and now with Aomi, you're an AI agent first company. Maybe first start off, just share a little background on how you got here with AI agents.
Yeah. So I've started multiple companies in my career, and I sort of went down like a career sabbatical kind of in the middle of COVID after I sort of basically left my previous company, and that was when I really started deep diving into LLMs. That was sort of when GPT-3 first came out, and that was sort of the first inflection point in terms of getting mainstream understanding of what AI is actually about and what it's actually capable of. So I just really started playing around with these systems, and what really sort of blew me away about modern day AI, so this kind of large language model type of system, it's not the fact that they're a really good writer and they could kind of write really good emails or like write really good reports and whatnot. Like that's very cool. It's very cool that they could talk to you like a real human. What really blew me away is actually the reasoning capability, right? So if you kind of look at all the kind of researchers coming out about AI agents, one of the things that we're discovering is that there's sort of this like emergent reasoning and critical thinking behavior that's kind of happening internally within these models. And that's why these models are performing so well in the first place. And AI agents, I mean, my definition of AI agents are, I think, very, very much aligned with the chart you showed, is agents that can actually use tools and do the work, right, and navigate websites on behalf of humans. And to do that very well, right, you can't actually use a traditional machine learning system because the type of problem you're solving is unbounded. Like, you could be navigating websites that's never seen before, right? And AI agents just give you the capability to really reason and really kind of figure out how to solve a problem, even though you've never seen that problem before. And that's the really cool thing about AI agents. So anyways, once I kind of had that realization, I sort of just basically realized that this is the thing that I want to spend the rest of my career on. Like this is like the generational technology to really kind of just get deep dive into and like build a company around. So that's sort of my beginning my journey in AI agents.
Love it. Very colorful origin story. But for the audience's benefit, what does Aomni do?
So Omni is we're basically AI native CRM. So we use AI agents to help you in your sort of sales and go-to-market efforts by researching all of your customers and all your contacts for you, right? So one of the biggest pain point that we found in the current sales process is actually just be able to have an intelligent conversation with customers and just basically be very strategic about sales, right? So if you actually compare what a top account executive does, right, what a top closer does in the sales process, they are experts in the industry, right? They know everything about the customers. They know what's happening there all the time. They know what's going on in the market. But not everyone has the time to actually do that, right? People are always overwhelmed with a lot of stuff to do. So we use our agent sort of. It's actually very similar to your multi-on use case. It's a research agent, so kind of go and browse the web on your behalf. We focus specifically on the sales vertical, so we'll kind of browse these kind of very much like business research, sales research specific type of data sources, gather all the information, and basically give you all the relevant information you know to prepare you for customer meetings, right? So if you're gonna have a demo call coming up with a customer, or if you need to write a business value proposition, right, for the customer, or like deliver a proposal, our agent can actually help you prepare you for all that stuff by just giving you all the information you need.
Great. I mean, there's a lot of these. There's a lot of activity around sales and marketing. There's a lot of changes taking place. You're on the front line. Maybe let's start with, we talked about our definitions of AI agent, how that compares to, previous AI tools like ChatGPT, where you had a co-pilot with it, right? And now there are these new tools, these new agents that allow for pure autonomy. Maybe let's start off with just some use cases that have emerged where you can now use AI agents to fully automate the task where, as in the past, you would have had to have a human in the loop. Any good examples come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, specifically in the go-to-market space, there's a kind of one of the big new category of product that's being created right now is something called AI SDRs, right? So it's like the name is pretty literal on what type of role they're trying to replace. Essentially, is the SDR, that lead generation role, and that is traditionally a kind of a highly manual, highly sort of tedious role, right? So traditionally, what a human SDR does when they do a lot of prospecting is they will kind of go on Zoom info, look at a lot of different data sources, right? Export a lot of data, load it up into Apollo, and basically use some sort of template to generate all the email and send it out. And now, and frankly, that's something that's just requires a lot of manual work and actually not that much critical thinking. And that's just a natural entry point for AI agent to just go and essentially automate. So now we have this new category of products that's just called AI SDRs, right? That basically does, 90 to 95% of all that work for you. And essentially what's happening now in the go-to-market space is that instead of having your sort of traditional, human SDRs that's doing all the lead gen for you, you will basically have an army of AI SDRs. And, and you will also, and essentially what the human does, it will be managing that army of AI SDRs and giving the direction. Like here's the high level strategy, right? Here's our campaign. We want to target tech companies, go and figure out who to target, what email to write, whatnot. So that role, so that's probably the biggest shift in the industry that's happening right now, is sort of on the lead gen side.
Yeah, no, we're seeing a lot of it, but we're also seeing some of the tension play out, right? So, what I guess if anyone here is curious in an agent for that type of role, what are some things to watch out for?
Yeah, and this is kind of always there is definitely a lot of tension that's kind of created in the market just because there's such a the emergence of the AI SDR is it's such a step function change in how sales is currently done that I think the market is having trouble adjusting. And it's one of those ones um, where a lot of AI SDR tend to focus on a lot of volume. And oftentimes what's happening now is, when companies use automations like AI SDRs, the value proposition do sound great, right? You could have an SDR that's working for you 24/7, like making cold calls for you 24/7, sending out as many emails you want, never gets tired. Like that value proposition sounds great. What's actually happening now is people are overusing these kind of AI SDRs, and the effectiveness of these AI SDRs is actually decreasing just as the adoption increases. Just because on the buyer side, I think everybody here probably has gotten an AI written email, these days. I think it's getting quite common now. So we're actually sort of seeing this sort of this reaction from the market happening, at the same time as AI SDR adoption is taking off. So it's very interesting to see because the market, I definitely do believe that there's a future for AI SDRs, but there's also going to be a lot of back and forth, right? There's going to be a lot of like ups and downs until the market reaches steady state, until we figure out like what is the right way of using this AI SDR, how much volume is enough volume, right? Like, how should the email spam filters adopt? How should the buyers react? I think there's still a lot of these sort of unanswered questions just because it's such a big change in the market.
Well,
Hey, David, Ravi here. Can I ask you a
Ravi,
question?
can
Yeah,
you share it
go.
for the end? If you type your questions in the chat, we like to
Oh,
save some
yeah,
time at
sure.
the end.
We'll do that. We'll do that.
Absolutely. Look forward to hearing your question. So, David, we covered one very tangible use case. I think everyone has, experienced an SDR before. And it's an interesting case study here and what we can expect to see going forward, right? This dynamic taking place where the market adopts to this new technology and it's still being sorted out. But I guess maybe one just macro question is, more generally, what are the biggest changes you're seeing inside of marketing and sales teams? How are they adapting to these new tools? The ones that are incorporating, let's use AI SDRs as an example. What happens to the organization? Do they come up with new roles? What are you seeing?
Yeah, the marketing sales team is definitely kind of one of the more effective teams, just because there's so much AI tooling kind of targeting these teams. I sort of see the role is actually kind of your typical sales role is very much diverging in almost two opposite directions. So what and the type of role you need does depend on your company and what your needs are. So on one hand, if you have a company that sells to a huge TAM, so basically you're selling to hundreds of thousands or millions of other customers, right? Maybe it's a consumer product or maybe it's kind of a B2B product on to SMEs. I think the AI SDR route is actually the way to go. You actually want to automate a lot of that first touch with customers. And essentially what your sales and marketing org will look like is that it's going to be a lot less people. And the people that you have in this org are going to be what I would call go-to-market engineers. That's sort of the new title that's sort of been thrown around now, is what's called go-to-market engineer. It's a very technical role. And basically your goal is to manage all those automations, right? You will manage stuff like the SDRs, or we manage there's another product called Clay that's doing very well right now. And there's a bunch of these sort of like very intelligent automation products. So instead of your traditional SDR, even traditional AEs, you'll have these GTM, go-to-market engineers, and manage that. On the other hand, if you're selling to large businesses and your TAM doesn't have as many companies, you're actually going to go the opposite direction, right? So what's happening in the opposite direction? What's happening in that direction is that it's the value of a human touch actually matters more than ever. Everybody's getting spammed left and right by AI emails, right? It works if you have a large TAM. It doesn't work if you have a smaller TAM. And everybody knows what AI email is now. That concept has been commoditized. So the value of a really relevant human touch actually matters even more. What you actually want to do is you want to have a team of really good AEs that just really skilled at building relationships. So instead of your traditional, like your traditional SDR type of archetypes, you actually want to have more of these what I call full stack AEs that could both find their leads, but also nurture those leads and basically take the lead all the way to completion. And in that case, you're still going to be AI powered, you're still going to be AI enabled, but that's kind of where our product come in. So we're not focused on the AI SDR part of the equation, right? So we think that's one market, and the other market is how do we make how do we really kind of turbocharge a sales rep to be much knowledgeable about their market so that they're just much better at building relationships and building trust. So I think that role is changing kind of very rapidly as well. And just among our own customer base, we're seeing more and more companies essentially replacing their kind of current BDR team with more of what's what I call strategic sales team, right? The number of strategic sales positions in all of our customer base has just been increasing very rapidly over the past year because people have realized this.
Great. And that's a nice segue actually into the next topic around company building. So, we've talked about a specific AI use case in the sales world, how it's starting to change how organizations think about growing. Let's talk about from a company-wide perspective. You launched a company, I think it was a decade ago, and grew into hundreds of employees. And now with Aomi, you're at 5 employees, right? Much smaller. But we recently heard from Sam Altman that we should expect to see the first billion-dollar company with 10 employees. So, what are your opinions on this in terms of like new roles? Are you just 5 employees away?
Yeah, I mean, the end result, everything we talked about so far is definitely the need for much less employees because every employee is just so empowered. And I mean, I'm based in San Francisco. I work with a lot of other AI startups, and there's almost like an unspoken tenet between all the AI startups about like who is going to be the first startup to prove Sam right, like who is going to be the first startup to do that, unicorn valuation at less than 10 employees. And I'm definitely keeping our employee count as low as possible, right? So you might and there's a lot of benefits from this. In my previous company, we grew the company to 200 people, and whenever I tell people how many employees we have in my previous company, everyone's always pretty they're really surprised. They're always like, wow, you have so many people. That means you guys must be doing very, very well. And that's always something that feels very good, right? When people compliment you on how large your company is. But kind of the corollary to that is if that's true, then that means if people are surprised at how many people your company have, you probably have too many people, right? You're probably letting a little bit too many inefficiencies seep in. And and the feedback I want to get now is when I tell people how many people I have in my current company, Omni, when I say 5 people, it usually comes as a surprise. And that's actually, I think, to me, that points at that being the right direction. That's kind of the right reaction, and and that's very achievable now with AI tools. I mean, just as a very simple example, right? Like internally, our sales and marketing is very heavily automated, right? So we do use our own sort of automation for prospecting. We use our own product for closing. On the engineering side, right? We use ChatGPT and Claude all the time, and we also use Cursor, which is another AI agent for code writing. And and we actually do a lot to basically really push everyone to double down on the use of AI to make this happen, right? Like a very maybe a kind of a naive sort of policy that we have is if you commit code if you write code for a company, you should aim to have at least 50% of the code be AI written, right? Which is sort of the opposite of what a lot of companies want because they want human written code. They don't want AI written code. But we actually actively encourage people to commit AI written code because it is a skill set you need to learn, and it is something you got to get used to. So we actively encourage all this internally within the company. And by doing that, that's how we're able to still stay relatively small and still be able to execute very, very quickly.
Very fascinating. I'm sure folks are curious more on the details, but we only have a few minutes left, and I want to ask one more question before there are a couple that were in the Zoom chat that we'll get to as well. But you're coming at it from a young company. You don't have a lot of history to contend with. You're trying new things. Let's relate it back to the audience here. A lot of companies have businesses that have been around for a long time. Um, I guess any perspectives on the advantages you see in a company that has more of a history to it? How should they think of their AI strategy? What are their strengths?
I actually think a lot of existing companies are in a very, very good position to take advantage of this whole like AI revolution, right? Because you have all the distribution in place, you have the customer relationship, you have that trust already, right? And I think that a lot of there's a huge opportunity to basically to basically update existing product and solutions with AI automations. And what's interesting about I think what's interesting about the current wave of AI products is that the current wave of AI products is really a lot of it is about kind of ripping and replacing existing solutions, right? So there's a lot of sort of like workflow automation driven AI product. Like AI SDR is sort of one example, but there's also like AI recruiters and there's like AI for like internal process automation, whatnot. But all the current AI product are they do map directly to an existing function. And to for any AI native company that's trying to sell those AI products, they're really starting from scratch from a distribution perspective, right? They've got to convince the customer that they can actually execute. They've got to build that relationship from scratch. And then they still have to prove that they can actually execute on the AI product. I think that current companies that's already providing that same solution, but maybe in a more manual way, are actually very, very well positioned to basically automate their sort of manual, the current manual solution, maybe more manual solution with an AI native product that does the same thing for much cheaper. I think that's actually a great strategy.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I'm sure that can relate to a lot of folks here, and including Robbie's question was around similarity of these agents and comparing it to RPA. And I think you just addressed that, right? That one of the opportunities is to actually upgrade RPA workflows with agents.
Yeah.
There was another question around fine tuning and lock-in. I think that's a little specific. Let's see if we can generalize this. Compatibility of AI agents with existing product suites like in Microsoft or Google's tool sets. I guess, yeah, that would be probably worth touching on. Do you see AI agents kind of detaching from the enterprise infrastructure, or will we see those traditional systems evolve?
I think if I'm reading the question correctly, it seems kind of related to a previous question, right, about how current companies could essentially take advantage of AI agents. I think that both will probably happen, but I think people underestimate how much opportunity there is for just attaching AI agents to existing systems. So I just remember this one example that I think is really relevant. So do you guys know the company Ramp, right? So Ramp is a giant fintech startup, billion-dollar company. They have a very, very complicated product line, right? And recently they launched their own AI agent to basically, help, it's almost like a very constrained version of Multion that you showed earlier, right? Where you could type in a command to the Ramp agent and the agent will navigate a Ramp website to basically do what you want, right? So in that case, they actually literally just implemented a AI agent, a web navigation agent, and just put it right on top of their existing super complicated, fintech product suite. And now it's this very, very cool product that if you're more of a traditional guy, you want to just kind of use the UI, you can still use the UI. But if you kind of maybe you're a new user, you're not familiar with the UI, you could just type it in like what you do in Multion, and it will just navigate everything and just do it for you, right? So Rampry just took advantage of that distribution advantage, just added, just basically layered it on top of the existing product. And now they could just serve a lot more users because they get to have all the advantages of an AI agent, AI native product, because it's easy to onboard, easy to use. You use it with chat and all that stuff.
Thank you, David. I mean, with so much changing, I think we have a lot of material for our breakout session. So Paul, can you